Yeah, okay. Cool, we are live. Took a little bit here. Anyway, I'm Angelo Batio. We are at the Sawtooth headquarters in Thousand Oaks, California. And sitting next to me is a great friend and a fantastic artist, Jeff Schroeder from Smashing Pumpkins.
Hey everybody.
Yes, and he's got other projects as well. So how you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to finally get here and, well, number one, see you, which I haven't actually seen you in person. I mean, we've seen each other online tons, and we actually did quite a bit together over the whole pandemic, which was really cool.
Yeah, multiple
did
songs.
a couple of things, but
Yeah.
It's so nice just to be up here and visit the facilities and
Because I think the last time was at NAMM. You know, we were hanging out.
crazy, yeah.
I mean, I've done one show since COVID, you know. So
You've done one, so one more than me.
it wasn't a very good one, though.
Yeah.
But, so tell
Oh,
everybody.
you said you played with Holland, right?
Yeah, I did a Holland reunion.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was fun, you know, to play those songs.
Yeah.
But the craziest thing about that show was it was like a memorial concert for this one girl that was a huge fan. Every person in the audience, it wasn't huge, but it was about 300 people, everyone had a story about me at some time. Dude, at the Thirsty Whale, bro, like we were hanging out having a brewski, bro. I was like, I mean, I couldn't, it was like every person. It's not like a meet and greet, it's like everybody. I was appreciative of it, but I was like, man. It was wild.
Yeah.
But it would be like a reunion, you know, high school reunion or something. Dude.
You're just like, I just want to play.
Yeah. But it was fun, you know. I mean, I enjoyed it. And luckily we've got shows coming up, you know.
Yeah.
But so kind of tell everybody, you know, what, you know, like your latest song.
Yeah, well, I just, released my first solo single, which is, I never really thought, I've always been a band guy and, but because of the circumstances, just at home a lot, and I started kind of writing some tunes and then putting together a little collection. I was like, you know what, I'll actually release something on my own, and I actually found it to be very therapeutic because, as you know, while being in bands is great, it's always a compromise between all the, the people in the band, and that often makes for really great music, that kind of push and pull of different members. But
yeah, the sum is greater than the parts.
Yeah, but there's also a side of us that wants to be indulgent or self-indulgent and be like, well, I want to record the song and produce it like this, and so that's when it's time to, I've realized, okay, you know what, I think it's time for me to do my own music, and so I thought about like just putting together some stuff. So I just released the first single. It's called Hey Nim, which is a Korean word for the sun, and it's a cover of like a 70s kind of psych folk song that was written by this Korean guitar player Shin Joon Hyung, who was like kind of like the first rock guitar player in Korea.
Wow.
And he wrote this song, and then she was basically a teenager. Kim Jung Mi sang the song. He basically produced a solo album for her. But it was, basically a song about kind of going out into the countryside and the forest and getting healing and rejuvenation. So I really thought, like, considering what the world had gone through, this would be like a very appropriate song as we kind of go back and start rebuilding the lives that we once had, and just to try to inject some just positivity into the world and play some leads and have fun, and so it came out really well, and it was really awesome.
And the video.
Oh yeah, and then
awesome.
A friend of mine did the video and did an amazing job, and it just felt really fun to not overthink things and just go, you know what, I like this, I like these sounds, I like these tones, I like this kind of guitar playing, and just I felt really free doing it. So it was very therapeutic for me as well, and so far the response has been very positive, and that shockingly, because as you know, we've all been, as artists, whatever, we go through those different periods and where you're thinking like, okay, I have my artistic things that I want to do, but I also have to be successful and run a business, and
like B.B. King can't put out a death metal.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And we all want to do different things, but, I have to say, like, I really didn't compromise much on my vision on this first single, and so it feels good that to just have done that. I feel like that's very healthy, and something that if I was going to encourage anybody is, And and I was thinking about different things we may talk about while I was here, and I really started thinking about you, and like when people ask me for like advice, like, oh, what should I do, like in the music industry, how do you be successful? I think, as far as especially the artists that you and I really kind of connect with, is everybody is a unique voice. Right. Whether it's a singer like Billy Corgan, what I mean, like as a songwriter, singer, guitar player, there's only one person in the world that sounds like him.
Yeah, he's unique unto himself.
And there's same as you. You know what I mean? And that's really, that is, I mean, even though you can play a lot of notes, it's not really about that, because I can hear you play 3 seconds, and it's like the sound, the articulation, the attack. It's the even your compositions, because I've listened to a lot of your music, and it's very like identifiable, and that's really something that I've kind of learning later in life, is that's really the key to becoming, is taking what you do and being proud of your unique like place in the world, and then translating that through your instrument or whatnot.
Yeah. You know what I think it comes down to? It's like the sense of self. Like, do you know who you are? Look in the mirror and say, what am I? And because I know, and I'm sure you've had to do this too. I mean, you've had some successful albums with Smashing Pumpkins. So, but you've got somebody else overseeing it. And see, I know for myself, when I was having producers produce me, there were parts of the albums I wanted to do again. I didn't think I did a good job, or I didn't like the way I played it, or maybe it wasn't even a mistake. I just didn't like it. No, it's good enough. And all these years later, I still don't like it. And that's the thing that I learned about like producing my own solo albums. If I don't like it, it doesn't get on the album. Like you can't be 100%, but I found that I'm more satisfied with, good or bad, if it's the best I can do, and then I just leave it.
And you know that. I mean? Only you really know that. And what's I really, and sometimes, like, I think as you get older and you go down this path, and when you really learn, like, oh, okay, that's a truth. This is like something that I really learned some wisdom. It's like the most obvious things. You know what I mean? And then sometimes it takes you a lifetime to be like, oh, duh, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well,
like some of these things, and I really think about, like, you think no boundaries. But that's really, I mean, to really embody that, and just to think of all the things that you've accomplished. And I would, even for myself, to go like, well, I'm at a different place in my life musically. I'm not 22, but you should never feel limited by where you're at. You should embrace where you're at and go like, I can jump off from this plateau and go anywhere, as long as we stay healthy and take care of ourselves. And so I really feel like the happiest I've been musically in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's, and the thing too that, hopefully I'm an example of this too. When you get older, you don't have to lose your skills. If you take care of yourself, you're not out, at the Rainbow every night doing shots of Jack.
Even though it's fun, right? I mean?
Well, I went through that.
It's a fun place.
But, there comes a point in a person's career, like Aerosmith, they had to straighten out or they'd be dead, And, but that's why I really love music. Like, I'm still like a kid with music. I love it. I mean, what are we doing today? We're playing guitar,
just having
talking
fun.
About guitar,
And what's so cool is I don't know people, but and I've said this in interviews, so it's not like a revelation, but for these are a lot of your fans. It's like I've taken lessons with Michael. That's how we actually started talking. Is I just reached out to him on his, I guess, your Instagram.
Yeah, we started talking on Instagram.
And I just said, hey, do you teach at all? And you were so gracious with your time, and there was, things that I was already on my own.
Well, you're already a great guitarist.
Like wanting to get into, but when you have the creme de la creme of like, to be able to watch you and go, hey, maybe just to pick a little more like that, a little more like this, it's like that kind of information is invaluable. And I have no ego about like taking a lesson or anything like that, because I just want to improve. I want to there's so many things that I hear in my head that I can't do, and I don't want to ever feel limited by my skill set. So that's why I'm always trying to work on things, and why even I reached out to you is like, I want to be able to do more, 2 years ago, I would not have been able to record Hey Nim in the way that I did, and that was after working with you and obviously putting in the hours in the woodshed, which is what we all got to do. That there's no way out of that.
Right,
you know,
right.
there's no secret.
Yeah, there's no shortcut.
Yeah, of like actually just time with the drum machine or metronome and doing those things. But I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't seeked out that knowledge and that. And I think you've said this in some of your live streams is you encourage people not to be afraid to go ask for help.
That's right.
And you're not, and I've in the past I've been I used to like I don't want to ask. Or I'd go into a store. My mom used to be like, you need to speak up more because I was always so shy and quiet. You know what I mean? But now I'm like, hey, I shouldn't be afraid to ask like my friends and peers for help. And, I'm a firm believer. You want to hang out with people that know more than you do a lot of times. If the cliche, the adage is if you're the smartest person in the room, you might be in the wrong room. My motto, and I said this, always a student. I think if somebody thinks they know it all, that's over. Then you're going to be all back in the old days, all back then, because life all changes, But we can improve as musicians, and it's funny you mention about directions and help, because that's something that has saved my life from touring. Because I didn't tour like you did with Smashing Pumpkins and this monster thing. I'm doing guitar clinics. I'm one guy on an airplane by myself, and a lot of times before cells were really popular, I had to use a payphone overseas, or people wouldn't be there to pick me up. Oh, I'm sorry, I was having breakfast, I forgot. And I was sitting at the airport going, nah, and I'm jet lagged. But I would always ask for help, even in France. I went to go to the Louvre by myself. I speak a little French, but I was like, pardon, monsieur, I'm an American, and will you help me? And they helped. If I would have gone, I want to see the Louvre, but help. Yo, bro.
Help is always, you get better like that, and the learning curve is like this,
Yeah, a couple of things, it always is, do you want to be, I would rather be the worst guitar player in a room of great guitar players, because you're just going to get better, you know what I mean? But that's and for me, like when I joined the Smashing Pumpkins, I never played in a band with like the caliber of musicians like that. Especially Billy's
and
an
these
amazing.
are iconic songs.
And then Jimmy Chamberlain, our drummer, is just incredible.
Sick,
and you can't help just to try and keep up. You're gonna get better. And but and it can feel intimidating, but. And I think this is another thing. I'm getting the high because I obviously watched all your live streams on quarantine. So you said so many good things. So I kind of want to provide maybe like a highlight reel is, I don't think that we ever feel like there's competition. Like I'm just happy to be here. And and in all honesty, like the way I view music and people, it's like I feel like I'm just honored to be here with you.
Well,
and I really, in the deepest level of knowing what it's like to go out and play your butt off, like I really respect everything you've done and not only just the advancements of the guitar and technicality on guitar that you've been able to do. So it's I'm honored to be here. But you mentioned this like we don't feel competitive.
No.
It's like we just I love to hear Michael play and you know what I mean, and he can do a zillion things. I can't even come close, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It's like we don't feel that way, and that's something that I have, like sometimes like feeling intimidated, and when you get into a room with people, like those are kind of not so great, like feelings to have, because they're not really helpful to becoming better. I think being like, hey, I'm here to learn and improve, and if I leave this jam session knowing I need to like go work on myself, that's actually a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I found, for example, it's easier to talk to people who have, quote, made it, unquote, than it is to talk to people who are not there, because I found some of the worst conversations and experiences I've had are with opening acts. Like they would set up their gear before I got there, and I'm the headliner. I had one band, the guitar player sets up right in my spot. And my mother was in the hospital, in
Yeah.
hospice. I was going right to the hospital after that. I was in no mood. And I go, dude, you know, we're here on time for sound check. You're setting up in my spot. He goes, oh, that's okay. You can set up around me. You know, and I thought, you know, but who would tell that to somebody,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I don't know. I just think, but I remember Zach Wild, like the first time I met him, we were talking, and he just asked me, he goes, Michael, how do you play Freight Train? You know, we were just, or like Mark
Yeah.
Tremonti, or like you,
Yeah.
or anybody that's on that level. We all got along, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like this, you know, I can't tell you anything, you know, these are my
Yeah,
secrets.
no, yeah.
But-
And there's no, and what you realize is when you get, there are no secrets.
Nah.
It's like, you know, I'll tell you, it's like 10 hours, 8 hours a day in a room practicing, that's, you know, that's gonna get
That
you
is
there.
the secret.
That is the secret.
Well, you know, I
Yeah.
remember when I first did my first instructional video called A Starlix, I had a lot of people tell me that I showed too much and I shouldn't have showed that. And I thought to myself, if I'm afraid to show somebody what I can do and try to help somebody, then I'm really insecure for myself. You know, and I just didn't
Yeah.
think that was the right attitude. Hey, Kevin, are there some questions?
When you're ready, I'll ask people right now if they have any questions.
Okay, and then Jeff, maybe tell us. You know, you said you have some Smashing.
Oh yeah,
Pumpkins.
yeah. And in Smashing Pumpkins world, we have 2 shows in September. September 17th in Chicago, which is going to be at Riot Fest. We're
Oh, cool.
playing headlining Friday night, which is going to be. We're so excited, and
Cool.
I'm excited to go. I haven't been to Chicago in a couple of years now because of COVID, but I'm excited to go back and
Great.
rehearse and then play the show. And then on that Sunday, the 19th, we're playing in Asbury Park, New Jersey at
Oh,
the
cool.
See Here Now festival. So we have that, and then we're actually working on a big, massive triple album, 33 songs, and
Wow.
so Bill,
Kevin, did you hear that?
yeah, 33 songs, Kevin, yeah.
33 songs?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Kevin, one of the owners of Sawtooth is a big Smashing Pumpkins fan.
Yeah.
A triple album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy's just, you know, he during
Well,
quarantine.
he's a prolific
Yeah,
writer,
he
you know?
likes to, and so he's been sending tracks out. James, you know, they did the drums in Nashville, and then James and I have been working on our guitar parts out here in California. So,
Cool.
you know, and so I'm about 17 songs in.
About halfway.
Yeah, and you know,
Little
it's so challenging because, as you know, anytime you go to do like a new record or something, you got like a couple new things that you're been like, oh, I can hardly wait to do this, and then after like 4 songs, you're like, okay, I can't do that on every song.
That's
And
right,
you
yeah.
start doing
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and you got to dig deeper, and so.
Well, and 33 songs.
Oh
you have
my
to dig
gosh!
very
Like
deep.
I'm like, you know, like, can we hang the guitar from the ceiling and, you know what I mean, like drill through it or something? You know, you're trying to do anything to get like something, you know, go on. But yeah, but that is, so, you know, and some days I do get like, I wake up and I think, like, oh my God, like how am I going to do this? Because but then when you go and you just put in the time and you know what I mean, and it's weird, like where do you find that gear to look for an idea? You know, that's still the mystery, right? I don't know
Yeah.
where it comes from.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mention that because, I mean, I just released my 15th solo album, and I think about it, and I try and make them all different, you know?
I love the new album.
Thanks.
And I got it on vinyl and cassette.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna do some.
Signed. He doesn't even know, but I got his signed.
Oh, you should have told me. I could have got those. Yeah.
I know, but I
appreciate the support.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, it's just it's something to be able to just find this creativity. I mean, I
Yeah.
know when I start recording, like if I'm by myself, not like with the band when we record, because you have to just, you know, we rehearse it kind of like old school, which is
Yeah.
cool. But when I'm by myself working on solo albums, you can write and record now at the same time. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and so it's a whole different thing. Like I'll sometimes play for hours and just, I'm not getting anything, you know, but you just have to start the process. It's
Mhm.
kind of like, you know, the old, you know, one step at a time, and sooner or later it starts to come together. And then, you know, I think after 17 songs, you have an overview. Okay, don't do this anymore. Don't do this. Okay, I've got new ideas. I mean, that's a lot of music.
Yeah, how
work
do
on.
you know, when you write, Michael, do you use, I mean, is it like do you have like, okay, I got a voice memo on my iPhone, like I got a riff, or is it you turn the computer on and you're like playing around with the beat and jamming to it, or is it
All of that.
all of them? Yeah.
All of it, yeah. In fact, it was Michael Amott from Arch Enemy. I was telling him that I used, like, I wake up in the middle of the night, you know, recorded onto my iPhone, and he goes, you know, I keep a guitar by me all the time. He goes, why do you record it? He says you should film it, because he said you have to figure out how you did it, you know. But you know what else I do? Like this song called "The Badlands" on my new album. I was listening to what was it? It was on XM, Sirius XM. It was not. It was like the thing that would play Disturbed and all that. I heard this song and I went do 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 ba do 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 do, and so I started like tapping it on my phone, on my dashboard of my car, and then I just recorded it, and I probably get 100 ideas from there, and then I go through it, and but I do all of the above too. And then, you know, sometimes for speed I work with a metronome, like when I don't have a computer here, or I don't use GarageBand, but like I'll start at 170, then go up to 180, then 190, you know, so but it's all of the above. You know, I think any songwriters, there's unlimited the ways you can create, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because I have a you know, question for you. When do you find yourself to be your most creative? What time of the day?
Probably in the middle of the nights.
Really, you're a deep night owl.
Well, no, because you know, I'm a Gemini, so I could work at 8 in the morning, but I find a lot of times if I have a deadline, or like my last record was on Rat Pack, so he told me, the owner said, if you get it to me by this amount of time, by this date, we can put it out. We didn't know COVID would hit, but that was more machine than man. Yeah. And so I'd be playing, and
this is a great title too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so Guitar World called me that one time.
Yeah,
and
it's great. Great imagery. You know.
Yeah, thanks. But I just a lot of times, like the song "Tribute to Randy," I wasn't happy with the way I played the solo, and so I went to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I said, "Time to rock." So sometimes some of my best stuff happens just, you know, I've been working all day, but I didn't quite get what I want, and then I finish it at night. So.
Yeah. See, like for me, I'm a morning. I like to wake up.
I noticed we messaged early.
I like to wake up early and, you know, to take the dog out, you know, and then I'll have a cup of coffee, and then I'll turn the computer on, and you know what I mean, and jam in. I do like my best stuff. Yeah, but by the after 6 p.m., I'm just.
Yeah,
I'm kind of done for. I mean, I usually now, you know, on Pumpkins I work till 8 p.m. You know, because I go to a different studio because I want to, like, I can't crank up at home.
Right.
You know, I don't have a. He's got an amazing spot. I don't. You know, I'm in LA. I got like a small. I got neighbors pretty close.
I live in the, you know, like, you know, I don't want to say this thing, but you know, right outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
But.
No, so I go to, you know, but usually at home I'm working early in the morning.
Yeah,
you know.
well, I get up early, but for me, I find I have to, I don't know, I seem to start like in the afternoon, just the way the day unfolds.
Yeah, that's great.
But, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Oh, do you have some questions for us?
All right, well, we had Matthew Owens, and I'm going to ask this one as being one of the owners of Sawtooth. Michael and Jeff, what guitars are you playing today?
Well, I'll let you. I mean,
yeah, this is great. We haven't talked much because, you know, Sawtooth sponsored, but I'm playing, it's a signature series. I have a big signature line with Sawtooth. This is called the FRX, and it's what we have here. It's like a Heritage FRX. It's 24 frets. It's
which
really
is crazy on a guitar that, like that style with 24 frets.
Yeah, I love it. And it's got great intonation. It's got that really thick sound because there's a lot of wood. And this is a top-of-the-line Floyd. It's way different. There's no bars. There's no springs in the back. So this compensates for the spring right here.
Yeah.
And it's very like temperamental. Like you move things a quarter of an inch, and it can really move. But once you set it, it's awesome. And then,
and that's so you don't have to, like, if you have a, you know, that kind of style, you don't have to dig in and route out the guitar to put in a Floyd Rose.
Yeah, and I think it looks cool. It's like almost like a Bigsby, you know, like a hot-rodded Bigsby. But yeah, this is a great sounding guitar. And then this one is one of my signatures. It's called the M24 matted white, and it's really cool. Top of the line Floyd, and
yeah, they're great. It's a great sounding guitar, and I mean, this is kind of more like the style of guitar that I love to play, like the kind of super Strat type.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's what I've played for a long time. So I kind of got away from the really pointy ones, but that I like that super.
But they're coming back. I mean, it's crazy. Like, you know, I mean, they're like, you know, surprising. Like, you know, like they're fluorescent guitars and everything. You know.
Yeah.
So
well, you know, it's unlimited what you can do with.
What you know, what I love is in a certain way. What's so cool is that I think, you know, what I noticed with especially a lot of younger bands and new artists is, you know, music is actually becoming like more genre free. Like, it's really just all over the place. And there's kind of certain fun in that, you know what I mean? Where you see, like, people playing, like, fluorescent guitars that aren't necessarily like a glam metal band or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, it's almost like fusion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even sushi, you know what I mean? You know, just fusion everything.
Yeah.
But I think that's just the way of the world too, you know? I mean, it's, you know, I remember when I was in Nitro, we never thought about touring outside the United States. I mean, I went to Japan with Minnie Moore, and it was my first time outside the United States playing, and I loved every second of it. But when we were in
did that blow your mind to think, like, man, because I picked up this guitar, I'm in Japan now, like, this just like being like dedicated to this, like, took me out of, you know, this is my little hometown in Illinois, and here I am. Like,
and because of a guitar, and I never take that for granted, you know, because no matter what anybody says, you know, like I took the picture of the forklift that I took when I was at one of the warehouses. You know, some guy writes, well, I drive a forklift for real, and I can guarantee you that I get laid more than you and make more money and all this stuff. And he goes, you know, I went, okay.
You win.
Yeah, okay, if that's what you think, you know. But, you know, we're playing guitar and traveling the world doing something we love, and I don't take it for granted at all, you know.
Yeah.
It's but I love it. I mean, we're just sitting here, and I mean, to think, you know, that like 33 songs. I mean, think of that, people out there. You know, he's in this huge band that's already has a bunch of hits, and now you're working on 33 new songs to release. That's a lot to do.
Yeah, because we really still feel like we need to push ourselves and you know, and kind of push ourselves artistically, and because it really, like, doing an album, as you know, is really difficult. But then to do even more, you really got to start pushing your mind and your creativity.
And you're working with a collective, a lot of people, you know, it's not just you controlling it, you know, because Billy could say, well, you played fantastic, but I don't want to hear it.
Well, that's how a lot of times, you know what I mean? That's how it is, you know what I mean? And you have to, and it's not, you know, and it's not as personal as you sometimes want to take it, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I've been so lucky, and I'm sure you've, you know, working with, like, when you work with like a great producer or something, you really do learn this other level of wisdom, and sometimes you think like you know everything, but you know, we know very little.
Well, I worked with Josh Wilbur. He did Megadeth and won the Grammy, and you know what's the thing that shocked me is I had these songs, and it was going to be a Nitro reunion, and then it just you know, a lot of things happened, but I was in the studio with Chris Adler. Josh Wilbur did all the Lamb of God stuff, as you know. So anyway, I'm in the studio with him, and he's slicing and dicing my songs, okay? And I remember, all of a sudden he puts this thing together. And I'm like, and he goes, and he just did it so different than the way I heard it.
Yeah.
But then he did this. He goes, I'm gonna speed it up. I'm like, what? And it's like, and I mean, our album, I mean, like, it was that song More Machine Than Man.
Yeah.
He did that with Chris. He sped, that song wasn't that fast. He sped it up about, I don't know, 7-8 BPM. It was flying. And, you know, and at first I thought, this is too fast. Now I can't hear it any other way. You know, and that's the difference between somebody that's that good, you know.
I've been working also with this different producer and this guy in Canada, and for some of this other project that I'm kind of doing, and you know, so I send my demos, and then I get and he does the same, like slice and at first it's like the first time I was so, like it was jarring because but every decision this person made was better than.
Yeah.
And so now when I said I'm looking forward to like getting it back because that kind of input can be great.
Well, I think it forced me to be a better editor of my own music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of times with instrumental, a guitarist will repeat the same verse 5 times, and how many times do you need to hear the verse? With an instrumental song, it's not a voice. But I wanted to. There's something else I want to say. Do you have any other questions?
There's a ton of them.
Yeah, we should. We're just going off on tangents.
I mean, whenever you're ready, I'm like hanging out
I
listening
enjoy
to you guys talk.
But, one last thing too, because Sawtooth is sponsoring this. I made a choice even with endorsements. Like, and it's kind of like you have to play what you believe in playing.
Yeah.
And I played, and it goes back to like where you're saying, like this freedom when you do your own music and it's yours and you have, I felt that way with guitar, with what I do with guitar playing because. The other company, the owner died, okay, but I had already established a really good relationship with the guys at Sawtooth. We'd known each other for years, so it's not like I just jumped and went, but I mean, you've seen the operation. The people are really awesome. And
dedicated and passionate and
and it's a
nice.
big operation, it's deceivingly big, when you think of it, there's a lot of guitar companies out here now that don't even have product. They can't get it shipped. I mean, there's all these supply problems, and I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm happy to see you here.
No, and what's so crazy and about guitars, and I finally I work with the company, and I've been able to finally get some custom guitars, and it's like such a journey, but like there's so much that goes into it, and from playing your guitar. And I have one of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I got the one with the Duncan pickups.
That's right. Yeah.
And even things like and just the way the guitar sounds and sits it's like I know, like I really value your wisdom in that because it's like from the JB pickup to the wood to the direct mounted to this kind of Floyd.
Right.
And whatever the net, like all that stuff makes a difference. Like and it's. Guitars sound great by themselves, but they have to sound good on a record too.
That's right.
And when you play this guitar, it sits in just the right place and distorts in just the right way.
Yeah.
And from leads, and those are things I really learned from people like you about. I mean, and I know that's why I'll ask you, hey, like, what blah 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 blah. I ask you because every time you have a new guitar count because I really want to learn as much as I can. And,
it's fun.
And believe me, he knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Because I've been to his house, and he's got one of every classic guitar in existence. You know what I mean? You pretty much do,
I like
right?
guitars.
Yeah, you pretty much do. And I know you've shown your collection online.
Yeah, I'm closing in on about 200 now.
Yeah. And to have that as a resource to go and then design your own guitars.
That's it.
Yeah,
because Joe and I
were like the ultimate R&D room, right?
Yeah, because we can actually say, okay, this guitar is this, and you're very very sharp about that because I didn't realize that, but we have used that in the past, as like reference points,
Yeah, but what's so cool about this guitar is, and something that I've now gotten used to is 24 frets, because you normally wouldn't on a...
No, it would be only 22.
Yeah. And believe me, once, I only started playing 24 fret guitars like the last couple years, and now, at first it's like a little bit of a, like your mind to like get you, but now when I play a 22 fret guitar, I'm like, I'm always...
Well, I found I started using the pickup sometimes to hit those high notes. I literally do one of these. And I love 24 frets. Are there some questions?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch. I'll say, okay, Naomi Riot is asking, what's the song you want to play the most during the next tour for each of you?
The next tour?
Yeah, on your tour that's coming up, what's the song that you're looking forward to playing the most?
The new songs. The song called The Badlands and More Machine Than Man. Those are the two, because I've never played them. I'm going to play a song called Time Traveler, too, that's way out there. And I've never played that in concert either, so those three. And a new double guitar solo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's brand new.
Yeah, I'm excited because we had a new album come out in November, Sear, and so we're going to play a couple songs off that. So we're really excited to do that. But then we're also playing, hopefully, we haven't started rehearsing, so, you know, all subject to change, but I think we're going to play this song called United States, and it's like a drop. You know, the whole guitar is tuned down to C sharp, you know, and it's got like this kind of, I play it, it's like got this, like, it's got this shuffle, you know, it's got
cool.
like a, you know, yeah, and it's a Jimmy, just, it's like this crazy, you know, and it's like a 10-minute super jam, and like we get to really go off on the guitar, and it's got all these cool syncopated, so so I hope we get to play that. I think it's on the list, you know, but, you know, until...
And of course, all the big hits.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, we're playing all those.
You know,
you have to have, especially at festivals, you know, it's really...
You know, one of the things, too, you know, when people ask me, like, what advice I could give, learn cover songs. And this is the main reason. For example, when Billy starts, the world is a vampire, the place erupts.
Yeah.
And so when you hear the spot on my rage, when you hear that and you see the audience react like that, that gives you an idea that if you can write a song that good and make an impact on people, you know, because that's the goal. Because I remember, like, even in the band Holland, you know, I had been in original bands before, and all of a sudden I get in this band, and we write these songs that, and Holland should have been huge. We were on Atlantic Records, Tom, we had everything A+. But when we would play those songs in front of people in clubs, they were singing them and screaming like I played cover songs, you know? And you know, I found that I've never met a musician that didn't get to this level that actually didn't know some covers. Because how do you know that feeling unless you actually play it and see the people go crazy, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, there is like a really good, you know, just learning a song and really learning it is going to help you. And now, you know, because over COVID, I was able to actually, you know, friends and like parents, you know, because I'm old enough to where my friends, you know, have kids, and they were like, hey, you know, would you mind giving some lessons to, you know, and so I have a few students now, you know, that I teach, and you know, and teach, like, it's one thing to teach someone's like, hey, I want to play Zeppelin or something, but then to actually break down kind of what's going to our show, like if you learn a lick, like, you know, and I got this from taking some jazz lessons, is if you learn a lick, you learn it like over different intervals. You know what I mean? Like you can learn like a rhythmic phrase, and you can do it starting off the fifth, but if it's like a different chord, you can do it like kind of the intervallic structure, you know, over like starting from the third or something like that, you know. Or but even with rock licks, you can really like take a Jimmy Page lick and learn it in different keys and on different strings and different, so it actually becomes part of your kind of vocabulary.
Yeah, well, that's,
you know, and that's kind of a, you know, a jazz thing, like, you know, I always call it, they don't call it licks, they call it, well, they do, but they call it vocabulary, right?
Right. I have all these books, like a saxophone books, you know, and you know, I've got a whole collection of books, and hopefully in my lifetime I'll go through all of them, but it's Al Di Meola, Don Mock, the list
I know,
goes on.
I know, me too. I'm like, and I still order because it's like a student for life, right?
Yeah, I keep some of them in my kitchen just to remind me that go over these. You know, I've got a stack like this. Like one's got Eddie Van Halen, then John Coltrane. You know, you know, it's always. And Kevin, any more questions? And maybe we should play.
You know, you've got a ton, but why don't you go ahead and play? And if you
one more question, let's do one more question.
One more question.
Yeah, let's do what I feel like we should.
Okay. Do you want something that's more like a lesson question, or
whatever? You know, one for Jeff.
What exercise is good to control left-hand pinky finger?
What's that?
What exercise is good to control your
I know,
left-hand pinky finger, but pinky finger?
He showed this too. You know, it's like, you know, and you showed it, I think, on, you know, it's like.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, you know, when I took a lesson with my, you know, he showed me some of his things that you actually still do every day.
I did it this morning.
Yeah, and it is great for kind of this kind of left-hand control. difficult, but he can do it. Like as he'll demonstrate right now, he can do it blazing fast.
Yeah, but it's a.
But it is good for that kind of control.
Yeah, but see how the fingers.
I know he's.
It's that part of it.
My hand was even worse than it is today.
Well, it's really good now.
Yeah, better.
But yeah, it's really because a lot of times people overlook the simplicity of it because there's a lot going on in something simple. You know, so they'll try some crazy exercise, but it doesn't really help. It's almost like you're learning a riff, but not really helping.
Getting the mechanics.
Yeah, the mechanics.
Yeah.
Because it's when you play this, it's what's going on with the other fingers. You know, if you can, you know, because a lot of people would play it like that.
Yeah.
You know, or like a finger way out like this.
Yeah, no, you want to keep kind of the form still here as much as possible. That's what. You know, he showed me, and I really feel like that's valuable, and you can do it with basically with all the pairings of the finger, like you know, and you know, it's a tough one is, I mean, for pinky, but to get really that. This one doesn't involve using the pinky, but it does about it in controlling where the pinky goes is 2 and 3. Why don't you show them that one?
Yeah, it says. Yeah, so.
Because sometimes you'll see, like even like me, my pinky, you know, is moving all over the place. See, and his doesn't.
Yeah, because I keep it here now. You know, it's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
But having that kind of control is part of pinky power too.
Yeah, it's true though. But you know, because see, after you do the basics, then work on whatever exercise you find online that you think is cool. You know, but if you don't start here, then eventually you're going to get hand injuries because you're going to, you know, and that's the thing with myself. I mean, again, I'm just living proof that, you know, I don't have problems because I was sitting there this morning in the hotel, unamplified, going. You know, and see, like, let's see the way my fingers are. You know, it's right there, and it keeps it so it's ergonomic and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
So should we play something? Sure. Yeah, if you want to maybe start. Cool. Well, maybe a couple more questions, and then that should do it for today.
I have one more question that I want to ask, but we should.
Okay.
No, please.
Yeah,
I'll find one.
Okay, this is kind of maybe because I'm just fascinated by this as a kind of more of like from a historian of guitar, you know, like because you were one of the originators of basically a new vocabulary of kind of this fast playing and bringing in other, say, non-blues based tonalities into a kind of more of a rock idiom.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, especially, I mean, there were players like Steve Hackett from Genesis and Steve Howe, you know, that.
And then Uli John Roth.
Yeah, and Uli John Roth, but, you know, but you know what I'm talking about, kind of this post-Van Halen explosion of technique. And I know from talking to people, you know, you were probably already discovering things before you, say, heard Eddie Van Halen or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, really, what was it that took your mind and made you go, like, I need to get out of this blues box and look for other kind of sounds? And, like, what was it, like, what pointed your mind in that direction?
There were two things. You're going to laugh when I tell you the first thing.
Yeah.
Got to change your
Yeah.
When I heard Santana, see, because before that, and then all of a sudden I heard this extra note. And I said, what is that? And see, when I was a kid, I studied jazz, but I couldn't put it all together in rock. You know, so I was doing things like when I was a kid, like, play stuff like that, or like Stormy.
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't. I was a kid, so I thought jazz was, well, you can't use that in rock. I couldn't put the two together. But Santana was the one who put those notes, so I could say, oh wow, you can do this in rock. And then I started realizing the scales that I learned in jazz and modes, I could apply to rock. And when I heard Al Di Meola pick, and then I have a I'm lefty, and this was not my strong hand, it was my weak hand. I was more of a legato player. And so when I heard Di Meola, I said, my mission in life is to alternate pick. I mean, it took me 2 years. And I started at 16, and by the time I was around 18, I had it down. And I mean, but it was really those two. And then, see, I didn't know, like, I love Van Halen, but I was never that kind of guitarist. Like, and I'll give you the my analogy of it. If we didn't have recordings or videos of Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen, there's absolutely no way we could notate it and anyone would know what the heck they sound like. You know, and so I was never like that. I was more of the guy that you could make the notation with, and so
you
know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
But that's what I did. It was Santana. I was 12 years old, and I was playing jazz, but none of the girls liked jazz. Not that I even liked girls back then, but my sister used to go, ooh, music, ooh, you know, and I don't like that, you know. She liked, you know, and then she liked Rush. My sister was a huge Rush fan, and you know, at that time I was listening to fusion, and I mean, I was really into fusion, and so, but that's what started it all. You know, it was Santana, and then very quickly after that, Di Meola, and then it was just my own thing, because I realized all the scales and modes apply to everything. I just couldn't put it together when I was young.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I thought jazz was completely different. I just couldn't merge it all together.
I see. Yeah.
But that's a great question.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.
Yeah, no.
Any others, Kevin?
That actually runs it into Anthony Musio was asking how old both of you were when you first started playing and learning to play guitar.
I was probably like 8 or 9 when I got an acoustic guitar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and you know, and it just sat around the house, and the guitar is a harmony guitar, you know what I mean, and it came with a little folded booklet, and it had maybe like a G, you know, like this.
Yeah.
You know,
G7.
yeah, you know. So that's all I could do. And then I begged. I was like, well, I need an electric guitar, and so I got an electric guitar and an amp, and I still just knew those 3 chords. And then finally, it's funny. One of my brothers, my brother's 8 years older than me, so he was already working. And this guy, he brought over somebody he worked with who played guitar, and he goes, oh, he's like, you got to learn this chord. If you learn this chord, and you can move it anywhere, he's like, you can play all these heavy metal songs you're listening to, you know, so. I remember he showed me like Breaking the Chains by Doc.
Yeah, I love that.
And I was like, oh my God. And that was like, you know, that was like the big breakthrough. Yeah, that was like 12, you know, like 11 or 12.
Yeah, because there's usually that kind of epiphany, that wake-up moment, you know. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, like, you've been in Smashing Pumpkins a long time now.
Yeah.
How did that whole thing come together?
Well, it's funny. I was in graduate school at UCLA getting my doctorate in comparative literature, not, you know, I played, you know, I played in...
Dr. Jeff.
Yeah, I'd been playing, you know, I played in bands, and then, but as you know, because I know you're very into art as well,
yeah,
like,
I love
we don't, you know, that kind of passion for artistic things, we don't see them as separate. You know what I mean? Like, a good film, a good piece of painting can inspire your guitar just as much as, you know, a good heavy metal tune. You know what I mean? So, even though I had kind of given up on music a little bit as a career, I just became passionate about something else. And so I was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years into my doctorate program there at UCLA, and I got a text one day from my buddy who said, hey, I know my friend works at the management company for the Pumpkins, and you know, they're sending out this thing, they're reforming, James isn't going to be coming back, and Darcy is not coming back either, and so they're going to look for a bass player and drummer, and because they were out in LA recording. And he said, I think you can do this. And I was like, I'd never auditioned for a band. I'd only been in my own bands. You know, I didn't have like a bio and a 8x10. You know what I mean? I was not that kind of, you know, and nothing wrong with being that kind of musician, but that wasn't me.
Right.
And then, so I just put something together, and I was a big fan of the band, so I had a pretty good idea. Like, I was like, well, since I get to write this bio, I'm going to put for guitar and blues. I knew that things that Billy would really love. You know, and so I got a call like 2 days later.
Did you have a photo to send that?
Yeah, because I played in a bunch of bands, so I had live shots. So I put together a nice little
because you've got a cool look.
Yeah, and sent it to them, and they called me a couple of days later, and I had lunch with them, I think, first, and then
that was out here.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the nice things about being in LA. Is, you know, I mean, things like that can happen. Like one day you're like, you know, still only need to meet one person, right?
Well, that's what my dad used to say. The magic number is 1.
Yeah.
One event, one thing changes everything.
Yeah, and you know, and it was crazy because I got together and with them just to hang out. They're like, okay, well, Billy's like, I'm doing guitar overdubs right now, so why don't you know, get together with Jimmy, and we would find these bass players, and so we would jam just the 3 of us. And we got it like you know, they tried me, and they've tried a few other guitar players, but they kind of circled back to me. And then we found this Ginger who ended up playing bass, and we started kind of rehearsing together. The 3 of us, we were like, man, we're sounding really good. Let's get Billy down here. Yeah, this is going good. So first of all, this is kind of like your story. You know, we'd been in this rehearsal place, like there's somewhere in the valley. And I got there a little early, and I said,
was it Mates or one of those?
It wasn't Mates, but I can't remember. It was like when it had a big tree house, like in the middle of it.
I think I know what you're talking
it's like an older place.
Yeah.
And so I get there, I set up my stuff. Billy walks in, he goes, well, first of all, you have your amp set up where I set up my amp. You know, excuse me. I'm like, oh shit, okay, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we play like one song, and he goes, well, you're not playing that part right. You know, and he goes, and anyway, he goes, I don't want to play all these old songs. I got this new, and he played that song. It was a brand new song they were recording for that album, you know, and I had never played like a heavy shuffle like that, like so, and
especially down to C sharp.
And I had all these crazy chained, and I just, and you know, and I had been jamming with basically Jimmy and Jeff for months, and so I went home that day.
And it was completely different than.
And I was like, that was it. I just blew the gig. Like, that was it. It's over. And, you know, and it was December. And so they went back to Chicago for the holidays. And so I didn't hear from them for like 3 weeks. And I was back at UCLA one day and walking to a seminar. And I see Jimmy Chamberlain calls. And I'm like, hey. He's like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I want to talk to you about that last jam. So I'm like, oh, I really don't want to talk about it. And he goes, Billy and I talked to him. We thought it went pretty well. And anyway, and long
So
story,
Billy was just kind of busted.
he just wanted to see like
Yeah.
if you could ride the horse.
That's right,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? And I get it because he wasn't interested. Like a lot of people can learn how to play an old song.
That's right.
How are you going to do it? He's like, I'm into like jamming new shit, and I want to like see how you respond because I want a musician that can respond to what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, because you can get people that can cover
Yeah.
the hit songs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't go in there like treating him like a star. Like you just were you're cool. You know what I mean? I'm not saying disrespectful.
Yeah, no,
but,
yeah.
Not like I'm not worthy. You know?
Yeah,
'Cause
and no, and I know that you mentioned that too, like from that it's you got to be an adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you walk in like fanboy or fangirl, you're treated like a fan. You know?
And I have to say, from day one, they were so cool, and it was so awesome as they were recording at the Village Recorder.
Oh, that's a great place.
With Roy Thomas Baker.
Oh, wow.
And so they would
Queen.
and it's right by UCLA, and so they would just be like, come by anytime you want. So I got to go and just hang out and like just learn and be around. It was such a cool experience. But I think that what they were really interested in, like, as you know, playing is one thing. Like you got to play great, but that's 2 hours a day. How are you going to be the other 22
Well,
hours?
that's it,
And so I think they wanted to make sure that they were bringing in someone who wasn't going to be.
That's great though. Your amps are in the wrong spot.
Yeah, he
That's
goes,
where I
first,
set up
he
my-
goes, first of all, your amp's in the that's my spot. I should have, you know what I should have told him? Well, it's okay, you can sit up around.
Yeah, you can set up a. Can you imagine what he would have done? Yeah, I mean, I was livid when that guy said it to me, and my mom's in the hospital. I was like,
Oh, I
kill
know,
somebody.
yeah.
But anyway, well, Jeff, I want to thank you. It's been really amazing.
It was I had just a good time. I don't want it to end.
I've actually got one thing that might be kind of cool to end
okay.
the show.
Okay.
Denny Reyes asked, what's your go-to riff? If you wanted to play your go-to riff, like the thing as soon as you get on the guitar, what do you usually go for?
Well, I can't. You know what? I've been trying to. I can't do it right now, though. Probably on this. But what's your go-to?
Well, I have this funny thing that I always sometimes go like, it's just this. It's not what I play in solos all the time, but if I'm noodling around, it's like
Yeah,
and I'll end up on the fifth of whatever scale or mode I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like if somebody was going to do a parody of my playing, that's what they probably might do or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but that would be like no matter where I am, like I'd end on that fifth. So that would be mine.
I always play. I seen you play this.
I love Dokken.
Yeah, I do too. And George is such a great guitar player. And
Yeah, we hung out on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and
Yeah.
I have to admit I was drinking a little too much that night because we were both, So I'm buying our drinks, and I've opened up for Lynch MAB several times, but I like George a lot. He's
yeah,
really cool.
he played with us one time in 2008. We invited him. We played out here at what used to be the Gibson Amphitheater, and it was really cool.
Well, the first time I was ever written up in a guitar magazine was when I was in the band Howlin'. Our album came out, and Tom Werman, our producer, did Doc.
Oh, yeah.
And the first comment I ever heard, George Lynch was, they did an interview, and they said, what new guitar players do you like? And he said, well, I really like that guy from Holland.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
Michael and at that time I wasn't Michelangelo Batio, just Mike Batio. And he said, yeah, I really like that guy from Holland. So that was the first time ever that I was mentioned in a mag, and it was George. So it was really cool.
that's always special, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And now that we know each other, so. But anyway, well, I really appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks, and I want to say, thank you to Sawtooth Guitars and Chromecast. Chromecast for allowing this, and making this happen, and one of the final things I want to say with the company is that I just, you can't say, I've always thought to myself, I can't save the world, and I don't know, I can't be all things to everybody, but I can help. You know, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
help on guitar. And that's one of the main reasons that attracted me to Sawtooth too, because they put on great parts, but you're not paying $3,000
Yeah,
for this
yeah,
guitar,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so anyway, but other than that, I could talk for days, and I mean,
So,
it's
yeah.
really great. And
Yeah.
I love the story. The Smashing Pumpkins
Yeah,
stories,
yeah.
especially with the amp. That's classic. But you handled it cool, you know,
Yeah.
because you could have flipped out. You know, you
Oh, no,
could
yeah.
like internalize and go, oh my God, you know, because that could very well
Yeah.
happen. And I'm sure Billy knew that could happen.
Yeah, and that's, and it was a good, and one last one I kind of end, with that. So I got the gig,
Uh-huh.
and then we went into rehearsal. So they're like, okay, you got to tell UCLA you're leaving, and this was like in maybe like February. And
Oh,
like,
so you only had like 3 or 4
in
months.
April we were going. We're going to Chicago to start rehearsing for the Zeitgeist tour.
Wow.
And so I showed up. I only owned 2 guitars. At that time I had 2 guitars. So obviously not enough to do a show. And none of the right guitars for that gig really. And so I showed. First of all, there's all these like new amps and guitars. I'm like, oh my God, and I never played a Les Paul. Gibson. And so if you've played like this, and then all of a sudden it's a
Different scale length, different everything.
totally different. So I'm like struggling, and so he was like really hard on me the first couple of days, and and it went to where like I was like, oh my God, like am I gonna get sent home? And so he was kind of right, because he was like had high expectations for another guitar player in the band. He's like, if you're gonna be in this band, like you got to really be able to. You got to make this. You got to sound great, and the stuff's got to sound great. And I remember. So we were kind of talking about something. He was being, like pretty particular about something. And I said, hey, just so you know, I really understand. I really get what you're trying to do.
He said that.
I said, I
Oh,
understand.
oh.
I said, you just want me to get better. And I said, so I really appreciate. So I want you to be as harsh. Like as critical as you can be into my playing, because I want this to be great too. And from that day on, we've never had a problem.
Yeah, that was.
Because I was like, hey, I want to improve, whatever it takes, And I would, I obviously put in a lot of hours to learn all the material and play it right. But yeah, I didn't get in this antagonistic dynamic because it was like, he's like, if you want to do this, like. There's only one way to be great is to be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah. And it's hard, and it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but it paid off.
Yeah, it's
You're
been fun.
still-
And now I'm here hanging out with these guys, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's fun.
yeah, and you're doing 33 new songs.
Yeah.
So
15 years later.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thanks a lot. I'm Angelo Batio.
Jeff Schroeder.
See ya.